We're going to do it again. We are live. Good morning, and I hope you're doing well today. My name is Fred. I'm not even talking to you yet, Terry. We'll get to you in a minute. My name is Fred. I'm talking to the Periscope audience right now. My name is Fred Green. I am the host of the Golf Smarter podcast, and we are doing a live Q&A this morning for next week's podcast episode with the CEO of Ben Hogan Golf, Terry Koehler. He's down in Texas, so you're going to be watching him on my Skype computer screen. And if you have any questions for Terry about the Ben Hogan golf clubs, the new irons that are out, or the TK15 wedges, please submit them on your phone for a Periscope question, and if I'm able to retrieve it, I will ask Terry during our podcast conversation. You're going to get to hear the whole podcast interview, which will be edited for the Golf Smarter audience, so thank you for joining us, and again, please submit your questions. Now you're going to look at Terry because you're done looking at me. If I double tap this screen, switch, there he is. Okay, and now it's time for us, Terry, to go live. Welcome back to the Golf Smarter podcast, Terry.
It's nice to be here again, Fred.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. You look like you're hanging out. You look nice and relaxed. How's that possible for a CEO of a new golf club company?
It's difficult, but I am taking a week out of the office to work from my home down in South Texas. So I'm sitting on the back porch of my farm, and I thought this would be a great place to do this interview and have a conversation. Nice, relaxing environment for me.
Very relaxing, and I hear the crickets in the background. I mean, this is we're home. This is awesome. So how are things? I'm sorry.
2 or 3 places in the world.
I can understand why. Work on your short game in the backyard?
Nah, it's a little too weedy out there right now. But it could use it for sure.
So, how are things going over at Ben Hogan Golf? We haven't talked to you in a couple months. Last time we talked, you were just about to go to the PGA Show to announce the clubs are being released. What has happened since?
Well, it's been a whirlwind 5 months since then. We had a tremendous reception to the company coming back to golf and the product we introduced at the PGA Show. We showed the first 2 things we've come out with, which are our line of TK15 wedges, which are just real extraordinary for anybody who wants to hit better wedge shots. And then our first iron product, which is a Fort Worth iron, named it in commemoration of the Ben Hogan Company coming back to Fort Worth. And the Fort Worth 15 is kind of the best of blades and gravity backs. It gives you the shot control, the performance of a traditional blade, but with a measure of forgiveness built in that heretofore has not been associated with this word blade. So we're really proud of it, having a great reception to both products.
So how do you get the people, the salespeople on the floor, how do you get the press to avoid the word blade?
Man, I don't know. That's a tough one.
Sorry.
We're teaching them what this golf club does, and we shouldn't be pigeonholing golf clubs into these categorical, blade, cavity back, game improvement, super game improvement. What we're trying to show people is that you can have a performance golf club for accuracy, precision, distance control, and still have a measure of forgiveness of that off-center hit. But what our design, kind of guiding design principle was, I want you to be able to feel the off-center hit, but I want you to get away with it. And a lot of the modern technologies with the thin faces and the extreme perimeter weighting, they let you get away with a mishit, but you didn't get the feedback you need to truly know, was that a toe miss or low face or high face? And it's that feedback that guides us to self-improvement.
Yeah, and so that kind of feedback you get, how do you design that kind of thing into golf clubs where the major, huge companies are just trying to get individual, sets out? They're trying to a one-size-fits-all. You're not doing that.
I think the feedback, it's a multi-part answer. First thing, Mr. Hogan totally believed in forged golf clubs. One of his quotes that we reproduce for people is that the feeling of a well-struck golf shot goes up the shaft, through your hands, and right into your heart. And that comes only from a forged golf club, but more so, it comes from a golf club that's got plenty of mass where you're making impact. So we built the Fort Worth 15 iron with a variable face thickness so that you always have mass right in the center of the face where you're striking perfect impact. But actually, when you have a little bit of an off-center hit, you have more mass behind the off-center hit because of the way we kind of dished out the back of this blade a little bit. And you look at a set of Fort Worth 15s from your clubs in the 40-degree lofts to the 30-degree lofts to the 20-degree lofts, you can see how the evolution of this weighting moves the weight a little lower, a little more toward the heel and toe for that forgiveness where you need it most. But we maintain weight distributed vertically in the club head so that a high face impact, a low face impact goes closer to what a pure impact would go. It's really about distance control. I mean, directional ability in iron is really more golfer driven, but the distance control we can build into the golf club, and we found there's a real opportunity to improve that for players.
Define distance control. Are we talking about getting more distance or just tuning right into exactly the number that you got to get to?
No, it's about control. I mean, if you're 155 yards from the green, you have to hit a 155-yard shot. That may be in between clubs. It may require you to pull a little off of an iron or add a little bit, maybe turn it over a little bit to get a few more yards out of it. But, golf is a game of distance precision. And your direction of your golf ball is going to be determined by face angle and swing path. The distance is quality of impact. And so what we were really focused on is to make these clubs as responsive as we could, because there are very few, textbook 7-irons or 9-irons in a round of golf. You're always having to do a little something to hit real golf shots. And our research showed that, golfers, particularly your viewers probably, because they're more serious about it, they're trying to hit different golf shots out there. They're trying to knock the ball down, peel a few yards off, hit little fades, little draws. We wanted a golf club that would allow them to do that better because we know that's the way they want to play the game.
Right. And how are your clubs comparing to the competition right now? From and I'm going to say based on not feedback from the press, but feedback from your customers.
Well, our customers are giving us rave reviews, and we let people demo the golf club. We get rave reviews. Obviously, there are some golfers that just don't find this golf club to be exactly what they're looking for. I understand that. Nobody may make a golf club that's right for everybody. But what we were able to do is create a golf club that the vast majority of our owners are just elated with. We just did a little survey. 94% of our owners said they look forward to buying another Ben Hogan product. And so that's customer satisfaction, which really drives us. It's about not chasing market fads or market trends or design fads, but to really put everything we had into making a golf club that's very responsive, very accurate, delivers extraordinary feel, and that we can then customize and custom fit to each individual golfer, not just in shaft and lie angle and length, but also fitting the loft matrix. One of the things we do with this iron, we make every single loft from 20 to 47 degrees in the Fort Worth 15 iron. So now those 28 club heads, we can build a set that'll gap you perfectly. And we did a lot of things to kind of innovate in length transitions and regapping the long end of the set. It's a big story. It's a big departure, but no more so than when numbered irons replaced mashies and niblets back in the 20s. It's a better way to do it, we think.
And how do you determine, let's talk about how you determine what irons, like I would be playing if you have all the variable face angles and the fitness. How do you determine, with you being in Texas and me being in California, which is the right one set for me?
Well, obviously the best way to do a fitting is always live and in person, but we have a line called Hogan Fit, which is a bag mapping analysis. And what it does, it takes your current bag, your current strength profile, things that we learned from you through questions, and it comes out with a desired launch profile for you. And what we really make is 4 launch profiles within this set of irons. You have one sequence of lofts is going to give you the lowest launch profile for really strong players or players that tend to launch the ball very high. And then from there, you can go up 1 degree increments with each club through your set until you get to our highest launch profile. So nobody's ever been able to match launch profile and fit that. And it gives us a real advantage. But the main reason we went to lofts is so we could do that, but also we're changing your set makeup over the last few decades as we've strengthened lofts and everybody's chasing the longest hitting 6-iron. The loft of that club with a 6 on the bottom has changed dramatically, and But in the market, a club with a 6 on it could have as much as 32 degrees aloft or as little as 26. So it kind of brings to mind, well, what is a 6 iron anyway? Well, what really is important is, that's a 27-degree loft golf club or a 38-degree loft golf club or whatever's in your hand. And our testing indicates that if you reconcile the shaft and reconcile the loft, these thin faces, we didn't see really any distance advantages to them. Most of the distance advantages that are being claimed by our testing is really a matter of just strengthening the golf club and lengthening the golf club. Well, if you put a 5-iron head on a shaft, it's going to go further than a 6-iron head on that same shaft. So, it's really a lot of marketing trying to sell longer, but golfers have all their long clubs compressed. A typical set of clubs today has 4 clubs under 30 degrees aloft and only 2 clubs over 40, maybe 1. And the over 40-degree golf clubs is where you're going to score the golf course. So, we wanted to realign that, which means we had to get away from conventional numbering.
And the consumers, are they not freaking out by, wait a minute, which one's my 5-iron? I forgot. Which is the 6? Because they're looking at numbers now. Is that throwing them off, or how's the response been to that?
Well, a few people have said that's a little confusing. Can you put the iron number on the club too? And the answer is no, we can't, because there is no such thing as a 4-iron or a 6-iron or an 8-iron. Their lofts are all over the map. So you can't compare 2 clubs to one another that have a 6 on the bottom, because they may be a club to a club and a half different in actual technical specs. So what we do is we produce a little yardage card for you to hang right on your bag to help you get used to your new yardages. And through our algorithmic and research, we can print out a yardage chart for any golfer that's pretty darn accurate if they're honest in their answers in Hogan Fit. And then we provide you with a second card that's blank. So as you fine-tune your yardages, and depending on how serious you are about it, as you fine-tune them, you can fill in your own card. But if you went out and bought a new set of irons, Fred, and you hadn't bought a set in 3 or 4 or 5 years, you're going to have to go relearn all your yardages anyway, because these new clubs are going to be a half a club to a club and a half stronger than whatever you gave up. You're going to have to relearn yardages when you buy a new set of irons, regardless of whether they have numbers or letters or whatever on the bottom of them.
Well, we're doing this live on Periscope right now, and audience members there who are watching us are submitting questions and making comments. And I just got a comment that says, it does take some time, Fred, but you do get used to it. It took some time on my Score Golf wedges, but now I'm loving playing with these. So you're getting that kind of feedback already from here.
Well, and again, our feedback from our owners, and bear in mind, we've only been delivering golf clubs for a little over 3 months. So, we're building an owner base pretty rapidly. But, any of the owners we've had have not reported that it's been a problem. The only challenges, if you will, have been from people that really haven't tried it yet. But again, if you're going to buy a new set of irons, whether you buy ours or anybody else's, you're going to have a whole new set of yardages to learn anyway. So what difference does it mean whether you're relating that new yardage to the number 6 or the number 29? You still got a new yardage to learn.
So someone just asked, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have to admit, it's kind of fun when you're playing with a group of guys and they go, what do you hit? I said, a 29 or a 33, and it's kind of fun to see the look on face.
Yeah, I bet.
That happens on TV sometimes.
Yeah, well, that could be a while. So have you had any tour players respond to these or take them out? Or can you talk about that?
Well, we've had tour players inquire. As you well know, there's a pretty good community of tour players here in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and we've had a number of them that have inquired. We already have some wedges in play on the LPGA Tour with one of their top players who we can't mention her name, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we have a number of PGA Tour players, and we really haven't gone out there. Even when Colonial and Nelson were in town back-to-back, we didn't even go out on the range because we're just not ready to go light a fire on the tour yet, because we're still catching up. We'll be moving into we moved into our new offices April 1. We're a little behind on getting the production floor ready, but we'll be moving into the new production facility in July. So, we're trying to contain the demand, if you will, to what we can produce efficiently. We like to deliver custom sets of golf clubs in 2 to 3 days max, and so we're growing into our volumes.
That's a very smart idea, is to take it one step at a time, just like your golf game, right?
Yeah.
Patience. So tell me how the PGA Show went. I'm really curious about how your announcement went and what the reaction was on the show floor and at the demo area.
Well, it starts with demo day, and we have just a fabulous location right at the main gate. And the gates opened, I think, at 9, and at 9:02, we were just totally covered up in all of our hitting stations. And the reaction to the product was nothing short of phenomenal. Every one of the pros and retail people that came in to hit the golf club, we heard the word "wow" a lot. Let's put it that way, and
Wow.
we related about that.
Excellent.
But more, as important as that, we had so many golf pros over those 4 days, Fred, come to us and tell us, thank you for bringing this brand back to golf. And after hearing that about 5 times in the first hour, I started asking golf pros, and, they long for the way Ben Hogan always did business. And, it was a little more dignified, a little more straightforward, never trying to force any product on you, longer product life cycles. Just, we try to create what we call partnerships with these golf professionals and retailers where, we're all here to satisfy the golfer. I mean, the golfer is the only one that counts. Nobody else is really a customer. And so we approach our trade relationships as partnerships to let's put a higher grade golf club, a more refined fitting formula in the hands of your golfers and make for happy players. So we were really embraced both in the business principles and there's a tremendous just admiration for Mr. Hogan and what he accomplished in his career and in his life and his company. And, we vow every day to do that proud. This is not just a brand. This is a man's legacy that we have custodianship over, if you will. And almost 170 years of experience from the original Ben Hogan Company on our team. And as one guy said, well, this isn't the old Ben Hogan Company, but it sure is the real Ben Hogan Company. And that's the best thing we could strive for.
Oh, that's really nice. Congratulations. That's a very nice compliment. But so at this point, it is just a line of irons. You only have the one line of irons. Are there plans to expand that to a second, type of club head, or even hybrids, fairway woods, drivers? What's the future plans for expansion?
Well, we felt like this first iron needed to be more for the lower end of the player spectrum, the handicap spectrum, because that's what people expect Ben Hogan to come out with first. And we have a very full slate of projects in development. We got a really wonderful young director of engineering and R&D, Justin Honey, who came to us from Adams, and he's an Aggie like me, so that was a good thing, Texas A&M grad. And Justin is an excellent player and really understands golf clubs, and his mandate is design clubs that really work for what we're trying to do. Never pay attention to what the rest of the industry is doing unless that creates an opportunity, but not to match what they're doing. We have a second set of irons in development that's looking really, really promising to expand our reach to a little middle to higher handicap. People want a little bigger blade profile, little higher launch profile. We've got some very interesting hybrid hollow iron things coming on board this fall, golf bag line coming in this fall, some very interesting prototypes and drivers, fairways. We're a 2 or 3 year plan to be a full line manufacturer, but we're not rushing anything. Our wedge line, of course, is we just can't be prouder of that. We've got players from 30 handicaps to tour players that are raving about what this wedge does when you get the right loft gapping and we probably only other than score, and my principle still is carried forward in a Hogan that wedges are full swing golf clubs now. They need to be designed for that, and we have.
Just to let everybody on Periscope know, we're talking to Terry Koehler, CEO of Ben Hogan Golf, about the new Ben Hogan Golf clubs, irons, that they've just recently released. But Terry and I have known each other for a long time. He's been on the podcast, I want to say dozens of times in the many years we've been doing it. But when we started out, we first started talking, it was a company called Eidolon, and then it was Score Golf. And those were all specifically focused on wedge play, or scoring clubs, as you like to call them. How has that evolved, and what is happening now with the Ben Hogan name on it? Because I still play with my Score 4161 wedges and swear by them. And so I want to know what I'm losing when I move on to the Ben Hogan TK. What are they? The TK 15 TK wedges? Is that what they are?
TK 15. Yeah.
The TK 15.
You know, Fred, what's interesting about where Score came from, and I never talked about it because I didn't think it was right, but the inspiration behind the Score design was a old Ben Hogan pitching wedge that I found sometime while we were in the middle of doing the Eidolon wedges, and I found this Ben Hogan 51-degree special pitching wedge and had a back design unlike anything I'd ever seen. I went out and hit it. The bounce was very minimal. It was kind of hard in turf engagement, but the ball flight and the trajectory control off this golf club were phenomenal, and it was really the inspiration behind moving the weight around on Score to create this full swing golf club. We built Scores for 4.5 years and created thousands of loyal owners, and I can assure you that there's absolutely nothing wrong with your Score wedges. They're an extraordinary product. Mm-hmm. What we've done with Hogan is take 4.5 years of customer feedback and learning, plus the ability to incorporate some pure Hogan design principles, which Mr. Hogan himself drove through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, that I felt like, as Score, I couldn't usurp into those design values, even though I admired them. But now that we are the Ben Hogan Company, we want these clubs to be as much Mr. Hogan's as they are ours. And so the new Hogan wedges reflect the best of Score and the best of Ben Hogan. I mean, that's a pretty tough combination right there.
Very much so. Matt Erickson just commented on Periscope, he will not take his Score clubs out of his bag. You can't even fight with him. He's not going to let you have those.
Well, and to that, I would say, I respect that, appreciate that. We get it a lot. We've converted a lot of Score owners that tell us, wow, I didn't think you could get better, but you did. But, if you love the Score wedges, we can build a set of Ben Hogan irons to blend exactly to those lofts, and that just really is not possible out there. And you're going to get the same feel and performance down through your lofts in the 30s all the way down in as low into the 20s as you like to hit irons. And the sweet thing about our concept is we can blend right into your Score loft. We can blend right back into your hybrid lofts, and we can fit the rest of your scoring arsenal, to give you proper gapping and that you've experienced with Score.
Awesome. Help me out, and I'm going to ask a little technical question, not about golf clubs, but playing with irons and wedges, and that's. And I know that you have answers to these, and that's how I've always enjoyed talking to you, because we don't have to just talk about the technical part of equipment. We can talk about the golf swing, and you've always had some really nice advice for me. And I want to know more about getting divots versus sweeping the ball for which clubs. I mean, am I trying to get a nice big divot with my 5-iron as well as my pitching wedge?
Well, I think that all golfers vary their divots either accidentally or intentionally. But
yeah.
to my way of thinking, I really believe, and I learned this from, I don't know if you remember when Paul Azinger was on tour, and he was one of the first guys out on tour whose coach got a lot of praise. John Redmond was doing a lot back in the 80s. But I really thought John made a lot of sense. He was working with, I think it was Larry Rinker one day, and I was down watching him, and he had Larry Rinker taking these little thin dollar bill sized divots that were, leaving the stems of the grass. I mean, he wasn't taking a lot of turf. And they were kind of almost not really a pick, but just a really clean, shallow divot. And John felt like that was the best way to strike a golf ball because it was easier on your hands, easier on your body, and the turf conditions have less to do with ball flight that way. And I always thought that made a lot of sense. As I get older, and I'm 63 now, and the arthritis in my fingers and my right hand, I'm taking that advice more to heart because big divots really hurt. It grounds a little hard. But I really believe you vary your angle of attack for the kind of shot you're hitting. But whether you're swinging a 45-degree club or a 25-degree club, I think a rather shallow divot is more repeatable and more reliable. That's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fair. Thank you. I appreciate that. I do need now I want to get back to the hardware part. Some things that I don't understand is about irons, because I'm not really up as geeky as I am on equipment. It's not about golf equipment. It's more about electronics. what a blade versus a cavity back, and I know you don't want to call it a blade, but just so generic terms at this point, so people understand what's the difference and what's the advantage to different levels of golfers of having a club that is a solid piece versus a cavity back, which is kind of open up in the back, and the purpose of that. If you can help me with that.
Well, I think when perimeter weighting, cavity back, whatever you want to call it, when that first came about, I think it really served a purpose. But to me, I think the industry has pushed it too far. And you know, they talk about these thin faces about bringing driver technology to irons. Well, you know, if you hit a drive every once in a while that you hit perfect and it goes 15 yards further than normal, that's a good thing. But if that happens on an 8-iron or a 6-iron, it's not such a great thing, because that back bunker is probably really a bad place to be. And so I think what you really want out of your irons is distance consistency, not just gross distance. And you know, what I liken it to, Fred, is we've moved the weight so far away from the impact area that you know, I think the club performance is compromised. I always tell the story about, think of a simple claw hammer, and it drives a nail very well. But if you take that exact same hammer and turn it on its side, and you hit that nail where the metal is very thin, where the handle and the metal meet, it doesn't drive a nail very well. Well, it's the same amount of weight. It's just now it's essentially perimeter weighted, because the weight has been moved to either side of that impact point. And I believe you can overdo that in a golf club. And what we've proven is in our golf club, we have a little slight depression. I think some people have called it like a thumbprint in the back of the golf club head. And as the loft decreases from the mid-40s on down into the 20s, that depression gets deeper and a little lower. It pushes the weight a little lower in the club and a little more toward the heel and toe, but not dramatically so. And the effect of doing this is when you hit one of our clubs, when you hit the ball a little bit off center, there's actually a thicker cross-section at the point of impact than there was when you hit it dead center. And so the increased mass counteracts the off-centeredness of the hit in our testing to give you a more consistent distance and ball flight, so that you felt the off-center hit. I want you to have that feedback, but you got away with it. And to me, that's real game improvement, where I have feedback to improve with, but I got away with that miss. And to me, that's what we're trying to do. A pure blade design has got mass very much concentrated to the center. So when you hit a little toward the toe or a little toward the heel, that head wants to rotate around that impact point, and they're very penalizing. The classic blades tend to be very penalizing of toe hits, which is what we amateurs mostly get when we miss.
Yep, I know. That's I definitely know. Let's talk a little more about equipment. And a lot of people get caught up in the shafts of what their clubs have, what kind of shafts they have, and they can get very specific on things. Talk to me about what we'll find on the TK, not on the TK15s, but on the Fort Worth 15s. I'm sorry.
Well, when we tested our club heads, we tested all the shafts available to us, and we found the best results for most players. And shafts are a very personal thing, but the best results for most players, we offer three really different shafts in our standard offering. The KBS Tour V, which is more of a lighter standard weight steel, kind of in the old Hogan Apex shaft tradition. This is a 110-gram steel shaft, conventional properties. We offer a 90-gram version of that, the KBS Tour 90, which is a lighter steel. And then we turn to our friends over in the Metroplex at UST Mamiya. We're using their Recoil 660 and 680 graphite for our graphite offering. So between those three shafts, we can offer 7 different profiles, 2 plexes in the Tour V, 2 plexes in the Tour 90, and 3 plexes in the graphite. And we highly recommend that your wedges, whatever you're playing, whatever kind of irons and wedges you play, we highly recommend that you have your wedge shafts matched up to your iron shafts, because wedges off the rack have a heavy, stiff steel shaft. More and more golfers are going to lighter steels and graphite, and you have this big disconnect if you have mismatched shafts. But shafts are personal. Your launch monitor can really help you understand the shaft that's going to perform best for you, but it's also a feel quantity, and we still haven't figured out ways to quantify feel. So I really strongly suggest golfers try some different shafts and do it on a launch monitor, but also do it where ball flight can be observed if you can. and pick the one that you just think gives you the best combination of ball flight distance and control and feel.
So if I'm going through Hogan Fit, how do you determine which shaft would work best for me?
Well, we come at it from two angles. One is what's the shaft in your irons currently that you're used to, and we ask you if you've been custom fitted. Well, if you've been custom fitted for XYZ shaft, that probably isn't going to change a lot. Some fitter, if they were good, determined that shaft was going to load and unload best for you, and if you kind of like your irons, my goal is why stray too far from that. That variable has been established. And then, so we look at that. We also look at your swing speed, and we might suggest an alternative shaft. I mean, we get a lot of people. I'm 63, like I said, and we get a lot of people in their 60s and 70s that are still playing dynamics or some other standard steel shaft. And, I'm sorry, but you get weaker as you get older. Arthritis gets a little more nagging. And I really believe almost every golfer, particularly seniors over 45 or 50, can benefit by going to the lighter steel shafts and even into the graphites. I play graphite in my irons and my TK15 wedges. Have played graphite in my wedges and irons for 6 or 8, 9 years now because of my arthritis in my right hand. And you couldn't run fast enough to get me in a steel shaft. I just think that what we're doing in graphite, the people at UST Mamiya, this recoil is a tremendous product. And I'm sold on it. Awesome.
And what about grips?
Well, we created our own grip, working with Lampkin with their 3-gen compound, and that's our standard offering. It's in the red, white, and blue Ben Hogan color scheme. It's a really nice looking grip. But grips are kind of the most personal part of a golf club. We keep in stock a lot of different grips so people can have what they like the feel of. And we can go out and get anything, but that's really the one part of the golf club that to me is the most personal, shaft being the second most personal. And if you're used to a certain grip feel, changing that might not be a great idea. So we'll accommodate your needs. We want you to be happy.
Tell everyone how to get to the site and what they should be going through.
Well, we're at benhogangolf.com. You can go to the site, you can read about this technology, you can read about our disruptive approach to irons by building irons in every loft, and really understand why we did it. It's to fix a gapping problem you have, regardless of what kind of irons you play. And from there, I really strongly recommend you go to Hogan Fit. It's a personal bag mapping analysis, and what we do is take you through about a 5-minute exercise of asking a bunch of questions about you and your game and your set makeup, and then print you out an analysis of where your gapping is, where your lofts are compressed, where your lofts are expanded. And from there, if you choose, you can see what we would recommend as a wedge solution, and then what we would recommend as an iron solution. And, of course, our solutions are going to continually evolve as we add more products. But if nothing else, it's the most in-depth look at your golf bag you've ever had.
And a lot of people probably haven't done anything like that and won't even know what to do.
It surprises people what their lofts are.
I bet. Yeah. So listen, I've got to make a couple of announcements, and then when I do, I'd like to come back and ask you to give us a short piece of advice on what we should prepare before we go into Hogan Fit. What information do we need to have in front of us before we go do the Hogan Fit at benhogangolf.com? Can we do that?
Sure, I'd be glad to.
Okay, well, we're going to stop recording right there, hit save, and then say to everybody on Periscope that if you want to hear this piece of advice, you're going to have to hear the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us and for submitting your questions and sending your love our way. We appreciate it, and I'm going to wave from this side to everybody over at Periscope. And again, thanks so much for joining us, and please check out the Golf Smarter podcast, golfsmarter.com, or on iTunes. Thanks.